have a letter from Mr. D.F. White from Lismore, who says, "We enjoyed your film about the canoe trip down the Mile River so much that we'd like to ask the Leyland brothers to do something similar again. But this time, can we see some real rapids?" Well, we know what you mean by real rapids, Mr. White, but we don't really think that we're capable of tackling them. That's the sort of thing for experts. But we do agree, though, that it makes good action. So we've come to Nimboida in New South Wales, where the Australian Canoe Slalom and Wildwater Championships are being held. And to find out a little bit more about what's involved, I have with me Mr. Frank Whitebrook. Frank, you're one of the principal organisers behind the championships, I understand?
Yes, that's right. I'm chairman of the competition committee, and each year the Australian Canoe Federation run an annual Slalom and Wildwater Championships, and this year it was New South Wales' turn for Australia, and we've held it here at Nimboida in a course that the Northern Canoe Clubs have developed, and we've also invited New Zealand to participate in this one, as well as 5 other Australian states.
Now, this looks a pretty rough sort of a course. Is it the sort of thing that you'd expect a novice to be able to tackle?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, we discourage novices or beginners from moving into water like this, and it's a pity that sometimes you find people purchasing canoes and not having the wisdom that you've expressed yourself. They move onto water thinking that all you have to do is come down in the water, and they find that as soon as they start to turn, they get into trouble, and there have been tragedies caused by people not joining clubs and learning how to do it before they venture into this sort of water.
And safety is one of your big things. I notice helmets are worn on all competition.
Oh, yes, Mel. Helmets are worn, life jackets, and all the boats are tested for buoyancy inside them, and there are hand loops on them so they can be pulled out easily. And safety is number one in every regard with a registered canoe club with the Australian Canoe Federation. We test the life jackets for buoyancy before they're approved by the association, and each one must hold 6 kilograms of steel. We have a tub of water, wrap the life jacket in it and push it to the bottom, and if it doesn't come to the top, we advise the paddler that it's an unsatisfactory life jacket.
The camping grounds at the championship site is packed with over 200 canoeists from all over Australia and New Zealand. They're within a few hundred metres of the canoe course, which starts at the outlet of the powerhouse. Even the youngest competitors set off fearlessly into the raging rapids and demonstrate remarkable skill. The object of the sport is not just to negotiate the rapids without capsizing, but to carry out manoeuvres along the course and pass between various poles, known as gates. They must complete the full course in the best time. Then, for each mistake they make on the run, points are deducted. If the canoeists touch a pole or negotiate a gate in the wrong direction, they're penalised. Some gates must be passed backwards, and some must be tackled against the current. The symbol above each gate indicates to the paddler which way he must tackle it. Even the quieter stretch, known as Easy Street by the competitors, will be rough enough for most people. The real skill is not just paddling the canoe into the various spots, but executing the manoeuvres in the fastest possible time. To do this, the paddler must read the water and use the dead water called stoppers. Driving the bow or the stern into a stopper, with the rest of the canoe still in the fast-flowing water, can spin the canoe rapidly and line it up for the next gate. Two-man or Canadian canoes also tackle the rough course, but by the time they reach the section known as the tennis court rapids, the action really begins.
Very strong on the far side.
Even a capsize doesn't mean a skillful team is out of the competition. By the time the canoeists reach the end of the course, they're pretty exhausted, but still have to complete some fairly complex manoeuvres with turns and reverse gates.
Right over the bank. Right over the bank, is it?
Not all competitors reach the final smooth water to pass through the last gate and the finish line in reverse. And considering the number of competitors which tackle the rapids during the 4 days, the injuries are very low.
You are safely down the top stopper. They're over the low gate.
Most are out of the event on the famous tennis court rapids, providing spectacular action for both canoeists and spectators. With the aid of the slow motion camera, let's see what it's like to really ride some wild water. Rescue teams are positioned at all the dangerous points along the course, and once a canoeist has abandoned his craft, they act quickly. At no time must any spectator help or interfere with a canoeist, even though he may capsize. As long as the paddler remains in the canoe, he's still in the event. Split-second timing and lots of practice are needed to execute a perfect run through these rapids. But it's the unsuccessful runs which provide as much action for the cameras and the enthusiastic spectators. The style of the canoeists and the design of the canoes has improved greatly over the 110 years since the sport began. These fiberglass, lightweight canoes are a far cry from the first timber model built by the sport's founder, a Scot, John McGregor, who started all this in 1865. In 1972, the one-man slalom canoe was included in the Olympic Games program for the first time. And from these national titles, Australia's top canoeists will be selected for the next Olympics. The action and spectacle of shooting the wild water is certainly one of the best spectator sports I've ever seen. And I hope that this is what Mr. White in Lismore meant by real rapids.